a talk on Buddha nature this morning, and it can be defined as being our innate potential, our inner disposition to become a Buddha. So it's something that's present in all living beings, and it's eternal, it's blissful, it's unconditioned, it's pure, and it's always there. And everyone has it. But the thing is, it's obscured by our defilements. And only when those defilements are removed is our Buddha nature revealed. So it's peaceful, it's spontaneous, it's compassionate, it has energy directed towards what's needed, it's quite luminous, it's calm, it's effortless, it's equanimous, it's serene, and it's boundless, and there's an immense contentment about it. It's described as being like the sun hidden by clouds, in that the sun is always shining, but the clouds obscure it. And you could look at it as being, a stainless nature of mind, a luminous mind, and a mind empty of all defilements. So there's nothing to be added to this luminous mind and nothing to be taken away from it. And somewhere deep down inside us, there's this deep happiness, sublime contentment that we have. But as I said, there's lots of veils that hide it. It can be quite inspiring, actually, Buddha nature. So in the threefold puja that we have in our puja book, it says, we revere with reverence, we reverence the Buddha and aspire to follow him. The Buddha was born as we are born. What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome. What the Buddha attained, we too can attain. So just give some consideration to our aspiration that there is within us the capacity to become a Buddha. So if ever you think you have no confidence about that, you could just choose to remember, well, the Buddha did it. The Buddha uncovered his own Buddha nature. And if you think your faults are really your true self, then Buddha nature can remind you that that's not the case, that you do indeed have an immaculate Buddha nature deep within you. So we've all had glimpses of it. It sounds very grand the way I've described it, but we all have glimpses of it, just little insights into what it might be like. So it could be being entranced by a sunset. It could be being lost in a piece of music. It could be being out in nature. I remember once I was visiting my father in Armidale in northern New South Wales, which is a cold, cold, cold place. And it was in the middle of winter, and I was walking to his place along these country fields, which were entirely covered in frost, and the sun was out, and the frost, for as far as you can see, was absolutely sparkling. And just for a little while I was taken away from myself, and I just was in this experience of this beautiful glittering white countryside. It was so beautiful. Or it could be in a conversation or a dream, or it might be when we're ill or when we've had a bereavement. So it's important to remember these things, these little insights that we have that happen quite often, and a couple of things to be said about them, I think. Firstly, there's no self involved. Temporarily, we've abandoned ourself and we're in the experience itself. And the second thing is it's non-conceptual. We're not kind of thinking, oh, the temperature is sort of -4 and this causes certain chemical reactions which enable frost to form. We're not like that. We're just in that moment. With athletes, it's sort of said to be we're in the zone. So no self temporarily and non-conceptual temporarily. And then, of course, we lose it, and this sense of self returns, and the obscurations return, and we forget. But it's really important not to forget. So now I'm just going to describe an experience I had many, many years ago, in which I think I was very much in connection with Buddha nature. I know a couple of my friends here have heard this story, so apologies for that. But it was very early one morning, and I was driving down this very steep hill, and to the left was this big gully, and it had been raining softly for several days. So I was going quite slowly. And anyway, my car slipped on petrol that was on the road, and I was heading straight for this gully. And then something happened. The first thing was I absolutely felt no fear whatsoever. In fact, I was supremely happy. I was extremely happy. I felt entirely present, and I was completely calm, and I was completely focused. I had this awareness that said, don't go over that cliff, but I wasn't obsessing about it. I just kind of knew. And time expanded. I mean, this would only have taken about 2 or 3 seconds, I think, but actually I felt as though I had all the time in the world, absolutely all the time in the world. And I felt that this was taking a very long time. So things were very spacious, very calm, very focused, with absolutely no distractions. And I have to say, it was the most exquisite experience, and I've never experienced anything like it since. So that, I think, might have been a glimpse into Buddha nature. It might have been what the Buddha mind is like all the time, what Buddha nature is really like. And then, of course, I've spent decades after that just trying to deepen my practice, and I haven't had an experience like that ever since. But I have had experiences where, sunsets and music and frost and all that kind of stuff just temporarily reveals the true beauty of what I'm really like, what Buddha nature is really like. But if we want to get in touch with Buddha nature, we have to subdue our defilements, meaning our bad habits and our fixed views and our deep underlying ignorance and our rigidity. So, I mean, my practice has certainly matured, and I have become a lot more receptive and more aware and more open. And as one deepens one's practice, one becomes more ethical. And so there's a lot less self-obsession. And we do deepen our faith and confidence with our practice. But we do need to look at ways of addressing our defilements. And I'm just going to read a poem to you. It's called Dear You by Kaveri Patel. Dear you, you who always have so many things to do, so many places to be, your mind spinning like fan blades at high speed, each moment always a blur because you're never still. I know you're tired. I also know it's not your fault. The constant brain buzz is like a swarm of bees threatening to sting if you close your eyes. You've forgotten something again. You need to prepare for that, or else. You should have done that, differently. What if you closed your eyes? Would the world fall apart without you? Or would your mind become the open sky, flock of thoughts flying across the sunrise as you watched and smiled? I love that flock of thoughts. I just think it's so beautiful. Flock of birds, flock of thoughts. So I think there's a couple of things that poem is telling us, and it does relate to the defilements. First of all, it's saying, I think, reduce input, slow down. I remember in the year 2013, I went on a Buddhist pilgrimage, and I went right up to northern India into this town in the mountains called Kalimpong. Bhante Sangharakshita spent years there. And it consisted of this long, thin road cut in along this sort of precipitous mountain, and there were little homes and things on the other side of the drop. And so it went on for quite a long time. The village was very spread out. And one thing I noticed was that there were these very immaculately turned out kids, maybe 13, 10, 13, 14. The girls had their hair plaited beautifully. The boys had their hair slicked down. They had these fabulous, freshly ironed uniforms. They obviously had, just had their breakfast and whatever, but they were walking along this cliff road, and the majority of them had their head or these phones stuck to their head. And I thought, oh my goodness, how absolutely incongruous. It was about the last thing I expected, up in this sort of mountainous little town so far away from anywhere. But here they were with that vacant look in their eyes. So, this insidious reach of social media. And I was talking to this guy not so long ago, and he has one of those smart watches, and he was telling me he uses this watch, wakes him up in the morning, and then while he's still in bed, he presses this button, and all these work emails, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning, all these work emails come spewing into his phone, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is there no break from any of this? Anyway, so I think that poem is telling us if we want to lift the veils, we have to slow down and reduce our input. So, if you like kind of watching if you like to spend hours watching cute little videos of fluffy kittens on Facebook, then maybe you have to sort of decide, well, I'm not going to get too far with my practice if I keep doing this. So I think, and with the defilements in my own experience also, you just have to keep practicing. That's the way that one's Buddha nature is revealed. So Buddha nature, it doesn't have a sense of I or me or mine. Our true Buddha nature has no self present. It's empty of a sense of self. So we have a mantra called the Shunyata mantra, the emptiness mantra. I'll have to sing this to you. So it goes. Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Swabhava Shuddho Hum. Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Swabhava Shuddho Hum. And one way of translating that is, all phenomena are pure, that is, empty of self-nature. I too am pure, that is, empty of self-nature. And the way to become empty of self-nature is to move away from obsession with the self and to become other-directed. So our meditations in Triratna, we teach two main types of meditation, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, the mindfulness of breathing and the metta bhavana. They are both other-directed. So with the mindfulness of breathing, we're heightening our awareness through our breath. So we're not concentrating on me, we're being with our breath, something other than me. And with metta, well, the first stage is ourselves because we are worthy of love, but then it's entirely other-directed as we bring loving kindness towards a friend, a neutral person, a difficult person, and then to all beings. So we're being encouraged not to concentrate on ourselves, but to move towards others. And in Triratna also, one of our great emphases is the precepts, which are all other-directed. So the first one is loving kindness. That's directed to other people or other beings. Likewise, generosity. And stillness and simplicity and contentment, the third precept. Well, I kind of think in a way you could look at it as being self-acceptance, allowing energy to flow out to others in ways that are most helpful to them. Likewise, integrity of speech. We don't hurt others. We try not to hurt others with our speech. And mindfulness, clear and radiant. Well, we're naturally aware of others when we're mindful. So we just have to keep practicing to reduce this sense of self, and then the defilements are more likely to go away. So when thoughts and emotions come up, we can allow them to be like a flock of thoughts. We just observe them and let them go. So we're looking at our thoughts rather than coming from our thoughts. And I thought that I might finish with a small meditation which might go a little way to, at least temporarily, help us to move away from ourselves. So I'm going to ask you, just settle yourself into a meditation posture as best you can. I know you're mostly on chairs at the centre. And envisage yourself seated at the edge of a large lake. And you're feeling very calm and very peaceful. And it's sunrise. At least it ought to be sunrise, but there's some clouds in the sky. So you're sitting there, the edge of the lake. There's some ripples, some little sounds, very pleasant sounds. And you're just looking at the lake. And then the clouds pass away. And you see that the sun has always been there. But the clouds have obscured the sun. And then you see this flock of thoughts flying along the sky. But you're not perturbed. You're not coming from those thoughts. You're just watching them. You're just sitting there smiling like in the poem. You see the light, the sunlight reflected on the lake. Little ripples of beautiful light across the lake. Just broken up a little bit by the ripples on the lake. So you see how beautiful it is. And then a breeze comes up and the ripples become a bit choppy. And again, you see this flock of thoughts coming right down to where the choppy waves are. But then they're gone. And then you begin to see how clear this lake is. It's very deep, but you can see right down to the bottom. Beautiful, pure, clear water. So you enter the water. No problems. You can go right down. You're going right down, deeper and deeper into the water. Right down. You go right down, very deep, into the bottom. You've reached the bottom. And at the bottom, everything is peaceful. Everything is so clear, so lucid. Everything is filled with light. It's luminous. It's expansive. It's boundless and open. And this sense of great spaciousness. Not only that, but this sense of deep contentment, deep happiness. It's not your happiness, it's just happiness. So stay in this state, in the lake, just for a little while and experience whatever you're experiencing. Sooner or later, you have to return to your everyday life. So you're starting your ascent. You're starting it with a sense of intention to remember the peaceful, contented happy, luminous states that we're capable of. And now you're reaching the surface, leaving the lake and going back to your everyday life. And when you're ready, you can conclude the practice. So that concludes the talk. And somewhere here I've got some questions. Sorry that I didn't have them ready beforehand. So the questions are, what insights have I had? That's the first question. What insights have I had? The second one is, what are the defilements that prevent me from seeing Buddha nature within me? And the third one is, how can I work on them?